Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. Well, today I thought we'd talk about forks. You know, not these kind though. I'm talking about the ones on the XS. And especially this one. This is the one that came off that bike that I crashed. I thought, you know, today would be a good day to see if we can't straighten this out and make it a usable fork tube again. So stay tuned, we'll get to it. But first, we got to drain the fluid, take the cap off, pull the spring, and dismantle it so we can get a proper setup for straightening this fork. Okay, I'm in the process of draining the oil out of this fork. I've removed the bottom screw that goes in here. I put a pan underneath of it to catch the fluid. We're just going to put this back in. Now what I've done here is I've used an old set of triple trees to hold my fork in place. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the lower fork slider, and the best way to do that is to leave the springs intact for right now and remove the Allen from underneath. So we'll get to that here in a second. Okay, you can see that we've got the fork out of the triple tree. What we're going to do is we're going to remove that lower screw. Now I find it's easier to do with an impact wrench. You can do this with a standard socket wrench. Now this is probably going to dump oil, so you want to make sure when you tilt this, there's a pan underneath to catch the oil. Okay, this is going to drain a little oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in the triple tree and I will dismantle the rest of the fork after it's drained. Now these are adjustable type caps which you can push in and set at different heights. Usually you have the super pressure height, the medium, and the low. I had it set on low because of the type of springs and everything. I have progressive springs in here and everything. So now hopefully this will come out of there. This is pretty jammed in pretty good. Well, a half hour later, I got this thing to move. I ended up using a big piece of my plastic, solid plastic, and a persuader, trying not to damage that area of the slider, but I got it to come off, and it doesn't look like there's any damage inside. I think it was just jammed up so far into the curve that it wasn't allowing it to slide down. So we'll go from there. Pretty good bend. So what I have here is a couple of V blocks and an old rounded block that came off of one of my benders. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the high spot on these. Just rock them and go. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it down. You see I've brought it down a little bit here. What we're going to end up doing is spread out our area so we have a little bit more playing room here so we can go back and forth on this. Once again, we're going to try to find that high spot where that bend was at. And here again, this is what I've always said, take your time, don't get in a hurry, don't over push. You're going to bring this down to its flush, let it sit for a second, release. Now you can see we've straightened it some, so now we're going to move out on this outer edge here, find the high spot, Take it down tight. Like I've always said, let it sit for a little bit. We're getting closer. Maybe a little bit more towards the other end here. It's all done by feel. Now this tip kind of came up a little bit because the way we're sitting on here, which is probably a good sign that we got a little bit closer. Now we're going to go down out back here at this other end. I got to raise his head a little bit. Move these out a little further. You're just trying to find that high spot. Now, I suppose you could do this several different ways. You could have a little A-frame or a little square frame that you could put a hydraulic jack in and do the same thing and just use some cutout wood on either end. Because you don't want to mar this, tube. And that's why I'm using soft aluminum and soft aluminum here, or aluminium. So we're slowly getting there. It just takes time. I've straightened a lot of forks over the years. Sometimes it's a fast process and sometimes it's slower than heck. Now if you leave the block in here, when you're rotating this fork over, you can see it drop and you can see it rise. And when it rises and hits hard, then you know that you're at your high spot. So, push it back down to the low spot. Here again, let it sit for a little minute or so, a couple seconds. Let those molecules in that tube kind of straighten out a little bit. Let's take it over onto a flat surface and do the roll test. I'd say that's darn good. Okay, we got them apart, we got them straightened. I guess we need to put them back together again. So, easiest, the end tube. These have been modified for a little better flow. I got these from Mike's XS. And they just work better for the dampeners. So what we need to do is we need to insert tube, dampening tube. And sometimes they go in and sometimes they don't. That will reach up in here. And there we go. Want to make sure that you drop that down in there. That's the way it goes. It's in there. Put the cap on. It's very important. It shoves on. Now we're gonna, what I like to do is I kind of like to put the spring. Now remember, we want the large coils down, the short coils up if you're doing the whatever tube, whatever springs you're using. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this down in place and slide this together. Now I didn't replace the seal on this. Probably some of you guys have noticed. Due to the fact that those were fairly new seals. They look good. They're going to hold up. If they start leaking, yeah, we'll change them out. A lot of times when you're doing this lower Allen, a little pressure from the spring helps hold everything in place. And it worked. That screw's tightened up. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the other one together, and then we're going to put fluid in these, and then we're going to put the cap on it. I want to show you a nice little tool I've made up for putting these caps on. Here again, put the lower one on. Insert your dampener. Large coils down. Those all go into place. Then we're going to grab the other tube. I do like air. Okay, while we're at it right now, I'm going to go ahead and put these back together again. I didn't know if I needed to pull the seals or not because of what kind of condition they were in. These just all clip into place. All right. Okay, well, let's get this tube together. We've got the spring in there. We've got the little ring and the spring in place. We'll put our dust cap on. All right. So let's see what we got here. One of the things that I find that's really hard to do is, especially if you have these adjustable caps, is how hard it is to get that down and started. So what I did is I made a tool, this little tool here. It's a C-clamp, a piece of tubing, basically all I did. It's like half of a piece of tubing that will clamp on the tube up here and help push that cap inside there. But before we do that, we're going to put fluid in it and we'll set it up in the triple tree. So here we go. So on fluid, I use this Lucas, and this is 20 weight. And it seems to work just fine. What we need is 5.7 ounces, which is, let me look here, which is 169 cc's. So this is these are 60 cc's or 2-ounce squirts. So there's 60, there's 120 cc's, and that's 49 cc's. So right there, 69 cc's or 5.7 ounces. We have a little flat plate that goes on there. And then the adjustable, which is always, I have it adjusted all the way out. It'd be even difficult. So you can push these down and try to get them started. But what I've come up with, put that on there. I've come up with this little unit. Now I'm going to try and do a little video on that, on making this. We'll see how well that works out. But anyway, you can screw these down. See how easy that goes down in there. Now the trick to all of this is not to get it cross-threaded and to get it started easy. So you're not putting a lot of pressure against this unit. You're just bringing it down into the tube itself. Now this system will work on any kind of bike. You want to use, these are a 22 millimeter. So basically what I do is I just keep turning it, both units at the same time, so that you have even pressure, and you get to a certain stage, and then this thing will take off easy. So now you're totally off there. This is also when you want to change the fluid on your forks when it's still in the triple tree. Basically all you're doing is that this part right here will capture underneath the top part of the triple tree and screw back down. Now you can take these off doing the same method so they're not springing out all over the place, but I find that putting them on in place, this is actually a really easy way of doing it. 22mm socket, remove it from its, and like I said, all I've done here is I've just used an old triple tree for my clamp and a vise and such. Makes it easy. So there you go. One straightened tube, one fork put back together. The only problem with the other one, now the tube is straight now. This tube is straight. The only problem is the lower fork tube got smashed. That's why it was so difficult to take apart. This has actually been smashed in this way. I really don't know how I'm going to fix that unless I check it up in the lathe and rebore it, but then it's going to be oblong. So I've got a feeling that this fork lower slider is trash. So we'll have to come up with something else, I guess. I tried pressing on it to see if I could get it to go back in, but I don't know if you can make this out. Let me get over on this camera. But this actually has a belly in it, and it's got kind of, this is collapsed right here. So when that bike hit, it kind of went, that front end and everything kind of was stabilized, and it bent this whole unit right here along with that fork over. And I can show you here. Grab this. This tube only slides in so far. That's it. And that's not good. So, glad I put that Sportster front end on. Well, I hope this episode on straightening tubes has helped a bit. How you can save your old tubes even after they're bent. The type of stuff that I use, I have V-blocks, or I have these style, which is ones I use mostly for the tubes because of being that it's aluminium or aluminum, what we say here in the States, and a notch block that can be placed wherever as you're rolling this over. I hope that's helped some. It's fairly simple to do. It's too bad that we weren't able to save this fork tube slider, but you can actually literally see that it's been flattened, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get it back into shape. If I figure out how to do it, I'll do a video on it, saving the lower slider, hopefully. Anyway, and I hope you like the idea of the little C-clamp. You're just cutting the tip off the C-clamp, adding a piece of metal, welding it on there, and then you have the perfect little tool for sliding these caps back in and pushing the spring down at the same time. They work well. You just use a little hose clamp, good to go. Like I said, you can use these on pretty much any fork that you'd want, anywhere from Yamahas to Harleys to Triumphs to Kawasaki's, whatever's out there. This system usually works pretty good. So if this has helped in any manner, you enjoyed it, whatever, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that ringy-dingy button for the next episode. And if you do have comments, please put them in the comment section below. If you have questions, send them to my email. That's tmiyagi@hotmail.com. It'll come right up here at the bottom. So anyway, good hanging out with you guys again. I really appreciate the ones, my subscribers, my new and my old subscribers. I'm here to give you guys a hand. Anyway, keep the shiny side up, the rubber side down. And I'll see you on the road, hopefully. So this is Mr. Miyagi signing off. Cheers.